into positions of hopelessness and helplessness. The government gives them the drugs, builds bigger prisons, passes a three-strike law, and then wants us to sing God Bless America. No, no, no. Not God Bless America. God Damn America. That's in the Bible for killing innocent people. God Damn America for treating us citizens as less than human. God damn America as long as she tries to act like she is God and she is supreme.
Okay, hello, welcome back. It's the beginning of the episode. Hi, it's Pod Damn America. I'm Jake Flores, and Anders J. Lee is back.
Here. Hello. Back in New York City. How you doing? Anders J. Lee here.
Here, back in New York City, Anders J. Lee. Hello, everyone. Okay, well, you were out of town, and then history decided to happen. It was really annoying. I thought I was just going to chill and talk about dumb stuff, and then all these things happened. So we'll just jump right back into it. Minnesota, it's ice versus ice. I don't know if you've seen all the pigs falling and slipping on the ground. That's been a lot of fun.
They've been biffing, which is one of my favorite terms of art. That I believe it's a snowboarding. I was never a snowboarder, but I believe that's the phrase they use. I don't know. I guess if you see the movie Out Cold, they probably say that. I haven't seen it, but I always liked using the opportunity to say someone biffed, and you're getting to see a lot of that from the ICE agents who are proving that nominative determinism does not apply to acronyms. They are not well equipped to deal with literal ice, which few people are. I don't have a lot of talents in life. One of them is walking over ice. Having grown up in St. Paul, the sidewalks, there's no way to get all of the ice out of all of those sidewalks off of them all. And you need special agility, which, I don't have. I'm not the most athletic person. I do have good reflexes, so I can walk across ice and not fall down. Heavy steps is the key. But that has been, pleasing to watch as these guys biffing, falling on the ground for themselves.
Because a lot of them are not from the places they're being deployed. They're often from Texas. Every time there's a big fat ICE agent, they always ask them, where you from, man? And they're always from Texas, which is, I don't know how to feel about that.
Well, Texas apparently has more lakes than Minnesota, according to a study once that was designed to just destroy Minnesotan people's brains. But depending on one definition of how you measure a lake, you guys supposedly have more.
Apparently, if you fall into a frozen lake, I learned this recently, when you get up onto the ice, you hot dog roll your way out. Otherwise, because if you try to stand up, you'll fall back in or you'll break the ice. You have to pretend like you're a hot dog on one of those rollers at 7-Eleven, and you just flop on out. I saw a guy do it on TikTok. So tell that to everyone except for your local ICE agent. You're from there, and they're not. So you have the terrain advantage, which is cool.
Yes. And I have a theory about what happened with Miss Good, her murder, is that where it happened was on Portland Avenue in Minneapolis, and there's also Portland Avenue in St. Paul, where I'm from, and where I was this past week, and it was a very strange experience because I could not attend any protests for reasons I'll address at the end of the show. But I was there on the St. Paul side, and St. Paul never gets into the action. Like, everything exciting happens in Minneapolis, and like most people from St. Paul, I don't actually resent that. We're such a deferential, sad people that I remember once meeting a guy who had the St. Paul skyline tattooed on his bicep, and he admitted to me, if people ask where I'm from, I just say I'm from Minneapolis, which is just such a sad, pathetic statement. But people don't understand the difference between St. Paul and Minneapolis. It's a common thing where people will say, "Oh, you're from Minneapolis," and people genuinely think it's the same city. So I think that's probably what happened here. Is they were deployed. They were supposed to go to Portland Avenue in St. Paul, and they're like, "Wait, St. Paul, isn't that just Minneapolis?" So they went to the wrong Portland Avenue and got confused. and then sadly this poor woman was murdered.
It's like when you're in New York and you go to Wyckoff Street instead of Wyckoff Avenue, and you're like, "Why am I in downtown Brooklyn now? I'm trying to get to Cobra Club, man."
Yeah.
If you see, by the way, if you see the ICE agent and he's doing the hot dog thing, trying to get out of the water, first of all, it's funny because they're a pig and it's a hot dog. But second of all, you can just gently nudge them back into the water, and problem solved. I think. Just a little FYI.
Then you have hot dog flavored water.
Then you have
It feels like that's something they would listen to. ICE agents would listen to chocolate starfish and hot dog flavored water.
I'm gonna step my foot down here and denounce what you just said entirely. No. We're taking new metal back. It's cool. It's not for them anymore. They listen to dumb shit. I don't know what they're listening to, but it's not. They're not allowed to listen to Limp Bizkit. You know what I just realized after having talked about these people for a decade is that their name is it's the word Ice Age and then some more letters. That's weird. That's kind of like like it's like is it from a sci-fi novel, like it's supposed to have meaning or something.
Wait, what's the AGE?
Agent. I'm an ICE agent. I'm an agent of the Ice Age. It's like they're trying to bring us back with their stupid military they joined because they couldn't become real cops or whatever.
There is a lot of revanchist nostalgia for different ages throughout world history. I've not seen a ton for the Ice Age. And that I would kind of respect if they were like, we need to go back. I guess that's the plot of the Snowpiercer movie. But if people were actually advocating that and saying we need to freeze everything, bring back woolly mammoths, and no people, I guess, is they want, and that is consistent with their actions recently to eliminate human beings.
That'd be cool if their thing was like, at first we're like, oh, these dickheads are trying to deport everyone, and then they succeed and they deport a lot of people, and then when they're done, they're like, us too, and they start backing out of the country, and the whole thing is just to look at America and be like, look, it's empty now. Oh, we finally did it. It's not even to give it back to like indigenous people. It's just the goal is just to make an empty continent.
Which is, there were some environmentalists. I know this is a caricature. It's not helpful to spread, but I believe I've heard people talk about this, that there were straight up environmentalists in the late 90s who would say that, who were like, we just need to commit suicide and let animals live.
Honestly, that is what Antarctica basically is. It would make sense that they are ice agents and that's their thing. Is they're trying to turn every continent into Antarctica. And I guess the humans all have to live in the ocean or something for this to happen. I don't know.
That sounds cool.
Clearly, they're not actually doing this. I guess what I'm saying is that we should make our own thing. The ice agent, the agents of ice is what we'll call ourselves. The agents of the Ice Age. I don't know. I'm going to workshop it.
Yeah, I mean, be careful about what Ice Age. Let's see what Ice Age Twitter says about this one.
Yeah. It's probably not going to take off. I guess what I'm saying is maybe because everyone has protest fatigue and it's getting to a point where you just go like, does it do anything? Are we able to change anything with voting or protesting or rioting or organizing or anything? I'm trying to come up with new tactics here. One of them is we become them and just outrank them by making our own and like a dumber ice it's like Nathan Fielder. We'll make dumb ice. We'll make it bigger and it'll like eclipse them somehow. I'm gonna keep working on it, but get at me in the Discord if you want to start organizing dumb ice. Anyways, we were trying to make light of a very fucked up thing that happened. Clearly, probably don't need to break the news here on the podcast, but they shot someone in the face. It's pretty dire, pretty depressing stuff. They identified the guy, the ICE agent. His name's Jonathan Ross. He was wearing a mask. He's apparently Trump came out and defended him and said, well, he's got like PTSD because he was almost run over by a car at one point while doing ICE agent stuff. So that's why he pulled his gun out and shot. And that begs the question, why did you give him a gun, right? If that's like the, even if that's even true, but that's what they're saying is like that's one of the things that's been trotted out to defend his actions is, well, he couldn't help it. He has trauma and he has a response. I don't know. Feel like it begs reiterating that the budget increase when Trump was elected is like historically high. Nothing has ever been this high in the history of doing anything like this. Gave them what, like $80 billion or some shit. I don't even know if that's a number off the top of my head, but this doesn't need to be happening. So it's not a tragedy in this for that guy. He could have very well not been deployed in the first place. There is no actual like crisis for them to be addressing. I think this vaguely is happening in response to, or it's related in some level to the. Go ahead.
Do you want me to provide the context?
Please, yeah.
Okay, so this is it. I was in Minnesota. I wasn't reading that much, but I was soaking it up. It's just like it just feeds your. It was coming in through my little skin cells, and all the information is now in me, despite not being able to see it up close. I've been following it a little bit over the past few months, and this goes back to a few months ago when a big scandal was announced that Minnesota has been defrauded. Essentially, there was a nonprofit organization called Feeding Our Future, which was partnered with several dozen local businesses and was getting relief money to give out to people, give them food. And this is sort of post-pandemic, and Minnesota, as of like the early 2020s, has been passing a lot of progressive legislation. And as Walz, the governor, has acknowledged, they are trying to err on the side of generosity. So that has led to fraud. Whenever there's a lot of money rolling around, people take advantage of that. And in this case, there was this nonprofit that was taking a lot of money off the top. They were investigated by the Biden administration. This started in 2022, where it looks like state agencies have been reimbursing this group. The New York Times was reported a few months ago for invoicing tens of thousands of children that they said they had fed, but actually most of those meals didn't exist. And the people who were partnering with this organization were buying luxury cars, houses, real estate projects in other countries. And on top of that, there's also, and to be clear, and this is where sort of the right-wing propaganda comes in, Feeding Our Future is that a lot of people are being charged. Most of them are Somali. And to be clear, Somali and not Somalian, this is another, it's like Mandani, people say it that way to just kind of like annoy pedants and on the left. But they keep saying Somalian, and at this point they've at least been like the right-wing people who are making content about this, they've at least done some research, I would think, enough to know that it's Somali and not Somalian, but it's like a very intentional Somalian, and it just bothers me for OCD reasons. I don't even know if I'm that offended by it, but it really is annoying.
That's just not a word.
Somalian, yeah, it sounds like Somalian, which is slang for cash money.
Yeah,
but so there's another scandal too going on where there's supposed to be therapy for autistic children, and the prosecutors investigating this said
this did
that
hit close to home.
yeah, in multiple ways. I'm also soft launching my Somali era, folks.
You're gonna recommend wine to us?
Yeah. Such a great prefix. So many directions you can go with Psalm. It's so many is also that prefix as well.
Whoa.
But they were recruiting children from the Somali community, and this opens up a whole nother can of Anders J. Lee worms. They were being falsely certified, and this is the New York Times' language, falsely certifying as qualifying for autism treatment. What does that mean? I have a lot of questions about what a not false certification would be and where you draw the line. Interestingly, I have heard among anti-vaxxers, they will point out that the Somali community, well, they don't have autistic people because they don't get vaccinated. I've heard that. It's also said about the Amish. Kennedy likes to point that out. It's been repeated about the Somalis as well. And of course, they in Somalia, yeah, I mean, maybe they do now, but for a long time, they don't classify autism the same way, or they don't have the same definition. I don't know what the situation is there, but
you don't have autistic people if you don't have a autism diagnosis.
Right.
I could just make up a thing and go, you don't have any of these because it's the thing I just made up. It's like if you have brown hair and big eyebrows, you're Banian. Just a disease I just made up.
So that they come to the United States, they come to their promised homeland, Minnesota, and I think a lot of people look at autism. What is that on paper? That's basically a model citizen human being in the year 2026. Is you like someone who's completely antisocial and technically competent, which for the record, I'm neither of those things. But that looks good. So they want their kids to be autistic and get autistic treatment. That's my crank theory. I don't know if that's actually true. But anyway, this was construed as fraud, that these kids were getting certified en masse and there were their parents were getting paid, which I think is like that's pretty solid stuff you can point to and say that's corrupt. So these two scandals were very much in the news in Minnesota before this thing popped off. This was really rocking the state. The state Republican Party was having a field day because, again, you've had all these programs, all this legislation getting passed, and you have the high point of Tim Walz being the Democratic nominee for vice president, national figure now. So all this attention is on Minnesota, and now it's the bubble is sort of popping, as it were, and this has really bit Walz in the butt, or the thing that rhymes with Walz. He did create a task force to try and eliminate fraud in agencies, nonprofits, charities, etc. One of the methods to root this out was AI, which I'm skeptical of how much that's going to work. But anyway, he said he was going to try and deal with this, creates this task force, but the blowback ends up being too much, and it's hard to really point a finger at one person. I will say, I should have mentioned this earlier. So a lot of the people are being from Feed Our Future are Somali. The people being prosecuted. The head of the organization was a Euro-American woman. So the ringleader was white. She was a woman though, so I'm sure she's showed up in some YouTube video from a right winger saying it's feminism that's making her do this. But these scandals have precipitated, and they have caused Tim Walz to announce that he is no longer running for re-election this year, 2026, because he was, up until just a few weeks ago, he was plowing ahead because looked like he was going to run for president in 2028, and he wanted a third term. And now just all these scandals, I don't think he's admitting to anything. I don't even know if he is actually culpable for any of this, but it's enough of a bad look for him to bow out. And for the time being, it appears that Klobuchar, for some reason, wants to go from being a senator to a governor, which would not be a good outcome, in my opinion. She was elected 20 years ago now, when the Minnesota Democratic Farmer Labor Party was, I would say my impression is that it was in a very different place from where it is now. I haven't lived in Minnesota for a long time, but it's in the time that I've left and observing it. It seems it seems much more progressive now than it was 20 years ago. So I think she would have a hard time in a statewide primary. We'll see. But in any case, Walz is stepping down, and it's not enough, right? It's not enough to slay the dragon of Tim Walz. The Trump world needs to keep sort of picking at that scab. And this whole thing is kind of explained by making Tim Walz into a villain, which is really strange historically speaking, but it actually seems to have been an effective rallying cry for the Trump base. Because, he's one of the reasons he was selected as Kamala's running mate is because he's a white guy. That's what he would say. I remember him giving this speech, which annoyed me because he used a very specific phrase that gets way overused. He was like, I'm a permission structure for white guys to vote for Kamala.
Vote for my lily white ass.
Yeah. That's
Sit your white ass down and vote for my white ass.
That's what he should have said, but he said he existed as a permission structure, which I'm really hoping that phrase goes out in 2026.
I've never heard that phrase.
It's so annoying. It's just permission. He could just say permission, but he needs to add structure in there, like he works at a nonprofit, I guess. Maybe that's where he picked it up from.
He means it gives the racist white person permission to vote for Kamala?
Literally, yes, but he needed to say permission structure because I guess he's trying to appeal to the real Democratic base, which is people who say permission structure.
I guess so, yeah. I still don't buy. I mean, I don't buy what he's saying there either.
No, and it didn't work. I mean, the and mostly because the vice president is an inconsequential figure.
Because Kamala lost for Kamala reasons and Trump won for Trump reasons.
Yeah. Certainly not JD Vance reasons. But people could point to that on the right, and they're like, "You're trying to pander to us. We're going to knock down what you're trying to offer up as a real, sop to the guys we try to get to vote for us." And they have been effective at vilifying him. Tampon Tim, of course, in 2024.
I think it sounds cool.
Yeah, I don't know. I still don't know really what it means, but it's like
wear it like armor, Tim.
What's the worst a man could do with a tampon? I mean, well, I should say now that I say that, I guess some people could think of some bad things, but in general,
if you get shot and if you're Rocky, you put them in the bullet holes. That's a thing that always happens in action movies. That's pretty cool. And they never made fun of Rocky for having tampons. Yeah.
In Rocky?
Oh, sorry, Rambo, not Rocky.
Rambo?
That'd be much weirder if it was Rocky.
He gets shot in the middle of a boxing match.
He's punched in the eye, and then he shoves a tampon in his eye, and he's like, "He's keep going." Apollo Creed. If he dies, he dies. Oh my God, what is he doing to his eye?
It is funny you say that because there's this movie I watched in middle school called Lone Star State of Mind. You ever see that? It's Texas.
No.
It's a good movie.
I
saw it.
Sounds like the worst country cover of that Jay-Z song though ever.
Yeah.
It sounds like some shit you're at a rally.
Right, a collab between Chesney and Nelly or whatever.
Jelly Roll or whatever.
Yeah.
Jelly Roll and Nelly. It's called Nelly Roll.
They're gonna start that. Watch your words. But there's actually a good movie. When I saw it, and they rob a bank with maxi pads as masks.
So you can do lots of stuff with these things.
Right, but I was retelling that to my friends. It was like, you got to check out this movie. They rob a bank, and I said, because I was 12, I didn't know the difference. I was like, they rob a bank with tampons over their faces. And they're like, what the fuck? You just like stick them in their mouth and eyes?
Wait a minute. You're doing it a third time. You're talking about pantyhose.
No, that is another thing that thieves do sometimes. But
wait, but in this movie, they put maxi pads on their face?
Yeah, it's a great movie.
What movie? I'm gonna look this up.
Lone Star State of Mind.
I think that you're making the same mistake you made as a 12-year-old again right now by misnomering that thing as something else. Because bank robbers put pantyhose over their heads.
Some do, but in this movie, they put maxi pads.
They put the pantyhose and the maxi pads in their fucking
I think they just use maxi pads.
No, they put. It's like they put a guy bank robber puts the pantyhose thing on his head, but it's it's from the laundry and it's got his wife's maxi pad in it, so it's on his face inside of the pantyhose, and he gets to the bank robbery and he doesn't want to admit that he did that, so he's like, no, this actually is going to help the bank robbery, let's all do it. I didn't actually just put my wife's period on my face.
That could happen. I maintain that this was maxi pads, and I can see it now. Yeah, on Google Images, DJ Qualls has the eyes poked out and has the maxi pad over his, and it makes sense because it sticks on. But anyway, where were we? Tampon Tim. This is interesting because he's become vilified. Kamala's not in power. Biden is not in power. Who's the other national figure? There's Gavin Newsom. I mean, they've fucked with him a little bit, but Tampon Tim, they're really offended by this guy because was served up on a platter to the people they're trying to mobilize and activate. And it didn't work, but they're still like, we gotta get back at this guy and make him into they're just all these crazy.
I looked it up. You're right. They totally do that in that movie. That doesn't make any fucking sense.
What did I tell you? Great movie. Lone Star.
One kid, he has him on like a superhero mask with eye holes cut in the middle.
Yeah, that's what I said. That's who he robs the bank with him.
All right, I concede that happened in a movie.
Real life, I don't know. I would hope not, because it's wasting a perfectly good feminine product. But in any case, so he's the only guy left standing from that sort of Trump from that Biden-Harris world, right? And so they got to keep going after him, and they've been making insane conspiracy theories about him for almost 2 years now, year and a half, and it is as if in 2005, after Bush is reelected, their main priority is just fucking with John Edwards, who is the losing vice presidential candidate, John Kerry's running mate, which would be insane. It would be totally pointless, and if it wouldn't really help you activate your political agenda, especially because he was out of power. So not a perfect example, but anyway, you would find some stuff though, because he was getting jiggy with it, as it were. So that's what they've been doing. They've been trying to scandalize. They've chosen Minnesota not just for Tim Walz, to be fair, but also because of 2020. That was the epicenter of the Floyd uprising. You go back 10 and a half years ago, Jamar Clark was killed in Minneapolis, and it's interesting that this keeps happening there, and there's a lot of reasons for it. It's a progressive. I was almost going to say it's like an oasis in the middle of a red or conservative area, but it's really not. Minnesota as a whole has historically been pretty progressive, but especially the Twin Cities, and it's very close knit. So if something happens in a neighborhood, your neighbors are going to hear about it, and people really, as we're seeing now, are coming out and showing up and helping each other out and trying to resist this incursion. And that's what I think kind of makes it this epicenter for these big political events over the past 10 years. But the after this, what is a genuine scandal, there was all this focus from right wingers on Minnesota. They're trying to tie it to Tim Walz and, of course, Ilhan Omar and Somalis, who have become, and it's interesting. God damn it, Somalis, who I remember as a kid in Minnesota. I have to say, I don't want to gloss over what I'm sure was real racism but I just don't remember this kind of vehemence that you're seeing now 20 years ago when there were a lot of Somali people in the Twin Cities. I just don't maybe I was in a bubble, but what you're seeing now is like they've found a new thing to the new sort of shiny object that they're gonna bat at like cats for the next few years or whatever. And right now
Yeah.
it's Somalis, and that's because of this scandal. And also, we have to mention the mayoral election, which and this is something I've been thinking about a lot. Is like, what would the situation be if Omar Fateh had won and was the mayor of Minneapolis right now? Who was vilified and propagandized against just for his face. They were like, "Look at this face. This could be the mayor of a once great city," and that. So all of these. So this is kind of the new boogeyman right now is Somalis, and it started with this genuine scandal that then led to a fake scandal. There's a YouTuber, Nick Shirley. Although I wouldn't call him serious, he is Shirley. He is from Utah, and interestingly, is LDS. He identifies as LDS, but he's very adamant that he is not Mormon. I guess they're trying to rebrand.
There's
They
a
don't
difference.
like,
Like no one
apparently,
ever.
I know there is between FLDS, who's the Warren Jeffs cult, but LDS apparently is trying to say we're not Mormon. I'm pretty sure that soon it's going to become like, oh, you can't call us that. It's a slur. You can't call us Mormon. We're LDS, which is another acronym. So people, their eyes kind of glaze over. Easier to normalize an acronym.
It's
But
did you just call me that with the hard N? We say Morma around here.
Morma. But he is. I didn't realize this. He's the guy who did that video about soaking. Do you remember this? From a
Like
couple
the
years
first
ago?
one to make this a thing.
You know what soaking is, right?
Oh, I know. I just like amazed.
Okay.
Did someone popularize this? Did I get
I'm
it from a
pretty
specific
sure.
guy?
I'm pretty sure he was the guy. He went around BYU's campus, Brigham Young University, which
Right.
is a Mormon school out in Utah, and he was asking students about soaking, which, if people are not familiar, is a sexual act that certain Mormons do not consider sex, even though it 100% is. It is not good sex, or it doesn't sound like good sex. I guess if you're into that, not going to yuck your yum, but it's you. I believe you probably
It's
can explain
well,
this better.
we have discussed this a few times.
Oh,
on the
that's
show, but
right. Okay,
I
yeah.
will reintroduce the concept for anyone's a new listener and is unfamiliar with the Mormon act of soaking. Is when you stick it in and then don't move, because the moving is what makes it sinful. This actual stroking, so it's a loophole to get away from God's wrath and still technically have sex by just sort of sitting there.
And
Which I guess
and
you have
the
to pull out at some point, right? That's technically a
that's a
stroke,
movement. Yeah, yeah. I guess they just
and,
let it
to
crank
go
up.
in. Oh,
Right.
maybe.
Can the receiver gyrate or move at all? You know?
You're asking me. We should be emailing this guy. None of this makes sense. None of these are real. This is one of those things where you go, "Can you?" And it's like you can do anything because this isn't real. So there's no actual rules that any of this stuff actually is guided by. They made it up. I'm super soaker. That's what I would call myself if I was a student on the Brigham Young University campus. I'd be like the coolest guy on campus. Here comes the super soaker. He pumps twice before shooting.
Your roommate will know not to come in if you hang a super soaker on the doorknob.
Yeah,
Outside.
soaking in here.
Yeah. But he makes this. So he's made these videos, some of which are sort of seem apolitical. That one didn't seem conservative to me. It just seemed like a guy trying to get views, and that's
Anyone
a lot
can
of these.
soak. Yeah, nonpartisan.
Right. But he's also done videos about favelas in Brazil. He went to he's one of these guys who goes to cities and walks around. It's like, oh my god, like he's scared of getting robbed, and that's just the whole point of the video. And he made a video not that long ago about he successfully manufactured a scandal about Minnesota daycares.
Oh, this shit. Okay, this is what I heard. I remember hearing about this and then thinking this probably sprouted from here.
Yes. Yeah. So he went to Minneapolis and went to a daycare. It was called I think it's supposed to be called the Quality Learning Center. On the building, it says Quality Leering Center. I don't know if that's intentional. I'm going to assume they meant learning.
It's a bunch of guys and they're just like leaned over, like squinting their eyes. This is some quality leering.
In the Midwest, that's not an unpopular way to spend your time. So would be useful possibly, but the misspelling he is pointed at as evidence that this is a waste of money because these centers are subsidized. They're defrauding people. Look, they can't even spell. First of all, you don't need to spell at daycare. That's not what you learn there. Most people, I just assume like most people, I didn't learn to read till about 10th grade. I think that's probably the average in America. But you definitely don't learn it at daycare. That's not what that's for. And
well,
second
also,
of all,
if the sign said quality leering, it's clearly the end fell off. Like we've all been by a business where one of the letters fell off, right?
I mean,
there's a Popeyes near me. It just says eyes. It's so weird.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Nice Halloween Popeyes. But I have seen the sign for this place, and I will say the R and the I are pretty close together. So I think it was an oopsie. I'm gonna say I have another crackpot theory. In Minneapolis, there is a place called I don't know if it's still around anymore, but it was called Pease Academy, and it's spelled Pease, and it's in Dinkytown. And I always thought that was stupid, but it's in Dinkytown, which is if you've ever been there, you've probably been drunk. Dinkytown, at any given point, you walk to Dinkytown, 50% of the people there are intoxicated.
I do all my soaking in Dinkytown.
That probably has happened. There's probably at least 2 Mormon students at the University of Minnesota who have soaked in Dinkytown.
I can't believe there's a place called Dinkytown. I'm not going to dwell on this, but it's very funny.
It's yeah, you get used to it eventually. But when we first moved there was a riot in Dinkytown because
someone's tiddlywinks got stolen.
No, it was because they won the college hockey team won the Frozen Four, and so they decided to burn cars and stuff. And it was hockey, so it was people like me celebrating. So this was the National Guard was not called in. Surprise, surprise.
Right.
But so there's some construction company out in Dinkytown that they're drunk. They are drunk, and they went to, I think this Leering Center is in a different neighborhood, but they probably the same construction company. It's a similar sort of architecture, and they were drunk and they misspelled the name, and these guys are like, whatever, it's a daycare center, let's let it go. But there are a lot of Somali people who work there, and there are Somali children who go to the daycare center. And one of Shirley's big qualms is, well, why aren't there other kids in the daycare center? Why are they all Somali in these Somali neighborhoods? Why aren't there white? He keeps saying Mexican as like he'll do his thing where he's like, white, Asian, Mexican, like they're all, and he keeps so he's basically advocating busing, which is an ultra woke policy from this right-wing guy. It doesn't make any sense, but he's mad about that, and he's also mad that supposedly there were no kids actually at the daycare center because he walks up and starts banging on the door and is like, let me in, and he's doing it at a time where they're closed, which is, a lot of the day for a daycare center. They're there for when your parents are at work, and afterwards they go home. Um, and then when they were there, they didn't let him in because it's a strange man with a camera banging on the door asking to see the children. Like, no good, decent daycare center would let that guy in.
Well, it's a
Like, doesn't
leering. It's quality leerings. There's them's quality leering in there. I mean, you got to get in there and leer
right.
at the kids. Just harmless leering.
That could have been
Or
his
touch 'em or
excuse, I
nothing.
guess. But also in the video, he
Came all the way from
is
Dinkytown for this leering.
he's he talks to a source in the video who is just named David. I watched most of this stupid thing, and it was like, why is this guy just David? Why aren't they giving his full name? I don't know if they want to give some type of anonymity to him, or I guess they probably didn't want people to Google him because the source, and he's presented as this guy's a whistleblower. He's some kind of local journalist or investigator. But the Intercept dug into it, and this guy David is actually named David Hoke or Hawk. A lot of these names in Minnesota are like Bach, Hawk. But he is a right-wing gaming lobbyist who once had an Instagram that has since been taken down. But there was a post that said every all caps, every Somali, which gotta give him credit, he at least got it right that time. Every Somali in MN is engaged in fraud. All ALL, all caps, of them, all of them, every single one, even the children in the daycare center. Somehow that means they're brilliant people. They are all engaged in fraud, and he follows up. Even the blacks, which he does capitalize, even the blacks have had enough of the demon Muslims. So clearly a right-wing bigot. He also, it came out, he ran for attorney general. He was on a ballot that I looked at, and I'm going to hope I didn't vote for him, although 2010, I don't know who I voted for then, but he ran for attorney general and he was on some minor party ballot line, but he accused the tribal casinos in Minnesota of being connected to the Italian mafia. This is again in Minnesota. Not a ton of Italians there, but I at least give him credit for it going after another type of white person.
There are like different organized crime syndicates in different parts of the country and world. They don't need to be Italian. Like there are, I'm assuming in the Midwest, some sort of localized Midwest organized crime syndicate. I know in like Canada, there's all this crazy shit with like the maple because it's this huge export where it for a long time was controlled by the Canadian mafia, which is a mafia, except instead of Italian and eating, spaghetti and ricotta and whatever, it's a bunch of guys with the little ski caps on we control all the maple. All right, go and cut that fucking guy's legs off, all right? Because I told you I'm the Canadian mafia. So it just feels like there should be a local mafia for him to have plugged that into, but he probably just watched The Sopranos and then was like, okay, I'm obsessed with this thing now. I'm gonna make up a conspiracy theory about it. This is a gamer influencer we're talking about. This is not like a real person.
Well, I think he's like a casino.
Oh, that type of gaming. Yeah. Okay.
But I do wonder. I mean, St. Paul used to be a hotbed of organized crime in about 30s. Maybe he's harkening back to that, but he's the main source for this kid, Nick Shirley, who is totally out to lunch. The video has been debunked, and there has been fraud in the daycare system in Minnesota, but there was if you look back to 2019, this has already been dealt with. There was a report issued by the state, and they tightened oversight. This is reported in MinPost, and they created a Department of Children, Youth, and Families to take over childcare licensing, auditing, oversight, and they criminalized kickbacks for enrollment referrals. So, like, this has already been addressed, and he doesn't prove anything here. And he, um, again, shows up and demands to be let into a daycare center with children. And he's like, look at, they're not letting me in. Must be something bad going on. There's no windows. You can't see the kids. Well, that's very common in a daycare center for the safety of the children. They don't have windows often. And they apparently, some of the guys he showed up with to film this thing were in masks. So they were obviously not going to let them in. But this has contributed to some of the like fervor, and this, this is his video. I don't know if this is still the case, but there's a point where it was the most watched long form YouTube video, like over 10 minutes or whatever it is. So, and that's what matters right now to Trump, is like just the eyeballs. How many, I think someone has been referring to this as a clicktatorship. That's really what it's all about. That's what the base wants, is just, they care about content. And that's what the ICE agents ultimately were sent to produce, is content for the Trump people.
Okay, that makes sense. That does kind of get back around to where I wanted to go with this, because they needed a new thing, and this actually isn't a new thing. They kind of just have like various scapegoats like spinning on plates at any given time that they have in waiting, and then they conveniently sort of line up, and I think everything lined up for the Somali population of Minneapolis. But you will remember a few years ago when there was a whole thing when Trump and Vance were running for president, where the hysteria was that these Somali immigrants were eating people's dogs because they had been let
Haitian. Those Haitians.
Oh, that was Haitians. My bad. Is that racist that I got it wrong, or am I extra?
I don't know.
I got a racist
thing think on that one. I'm not sure.
But it's similar vibes. Like, okay, that's Haitians. They'll probably come back to Haitians eventually. But like but there've been, like, you've heard the inklings about this, and then next thing you know, there's a historic amount of like 20,000 ICE agents or something being dropped there. I think it's 2,000. Like one of the two numbers I read was it's 2,000. Okay, this is the biggest ICE agent drop they've done yet in Minneapolis. So it makes sense the why things are ramping up the way they are, and how this tragedy eventually happened. So let's talk about the shooting a little bit. She's seen the tape. It's one of these things that, like, they've decided it's a Rorschach blot. The right wing looks at it and they see a woman who's trying to murder an ICE agent, a federal officer. Everybody who's fucking sane looks at it and sees what it is, which is a woman trying to drive away from a fucking ICE agent who's jumping in front of her car. He completely moves himself out of the way before pulling out his gun and shooting her in the head 3 times. There's body cam footage that's a lot more like forgiving to him, but you have to remember it's on his body, so it gets shaky. The body cams are designed for that to happen. Something that we've kind of like taken completely with uncritically since a lot of the first, like, Ferguson and George Floyd and these sorts of things have happened, where police reform comes in and becomes a thing that the Democrats sort of champion, is that they just gave us this body cam thing. It's just completely understood to be a concession from the police. And if you think critically enough about this, you should understand that they never just give you anything. They are like in opposition to us. This helped the police, the idea of body cams. What it does is help them craft a narrative at any given time that makes them look right. And if you look at the body cam footage from his body's point of view, where it gets all shaky and scary, it looks much more forgiving than the footage you get externally from the person who's a bystander who's documenting the whole thing. That's where you can see him moving his feet out of the way and pulling his gun out of his holster anyway. That's why they don't like people filming them. They like for them to have control over the fucking footage that they then get to use selectively in court. this is a interesting thing that, like, I don't know, goes all the way back to George Floyd. They hated the fact that someone was filming that happening. Really, just this minute difference in recording these moments shows you a lot. So he clearly, I mean, regardless of whether, of really how that like microsecond went down, also because everyone involved is panicking, and it's kind of pointless to like split hairs over the minutia of which microsecond he reached for his gun or whatever. None of this really matters because he's not supposed to assassinate. He's not supposed to. Police officers and federal agents are not supposed to execute people on site for anything short of like really, really, really threatening their lives. And this is just a complete exaggeration to say that she was trying to run him over. Clearly, she was trying to get out of the fucking way, right? Clearly, she was, a comrade, a fucking member of her community. They were doing what everyone's doing out there. We're all fucking taunting these people because they're like an occupying fascist force. She said, "I'm not even mad at you, dude." And then she left, and he called her a fucking bitch and shot her in the head and said, "Oh, I'm so scared." They refused medical attention. The officer left with his gun. All of this stuff is like breaking, official protocol. Probably won't hold up in theory, legally. Well, I don't know. Who knows? I mean, at this point, all that stuff's out the window. But someone brought up an interesting article that relates to this, which is a 2013 DHS story about these fucking targets that they use for target practice, which were developed by a company that has like a contract with Homeland Security and basically supplies their targets that they use for target practice. They're called no hesitation targets. So I'm going to read a little bit from this article. In light of national gun violence debate that's currently taking place in Washington, yada, 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 Law Enforcement Targets Incorporated, a Minneapolis-based company that supplies shooting targets for the Department of Homeland Security, has begun to produce NMH, no more hesitation targets, which feature photos of children, senior citizens, mothers in playgrounds, and pregnant women, right? All armed with a handgun. Law enforcement targets have indicated that these were a quote requested law enforcement target for training, so they asked for them. And the idea being, instead of like the pregnant woman popping up and then you being like trained to not shoot her, which is how I think this used to work. There's like one of my favorite old Simpsons episodes is when Marge becomes a cop and she goes through the shooting range thing, and it's like these cardboard standees of people popping up, but it's like a burglar and she shoots him, and then like a criminal and she shoots him, and then there's like a woman pushing a baby carriage and she's like, her reflexes kick in and she pulls her gun back or whatever. And then there's a blind man and she does the same thing. And at the end, Chief Wiggum goes like, "Oh, you did pretty good. You missed the baby. You missed the blind man." Right. This has become real though. Like this happened in reality where they made a baby and a blind man. And part of the targets that the training is to shoot. And the reason they're called no more hesitation targets is because they're trying to drill into their officers' heads that that it could be a pregnant woman that shoots you, so you should override your human empathy and your impulse to not shoot a pregnant woman or a baby or an elderly person or a blind man and shoot them, and you're rewarded for this. So a combination of this training, whatever previous fucking post-traumatic thing happened to this particular officer that they're claiming, and then the complete oversight where you take that officer and put them on the front line with a gun, all of this leads to the stuff happening. Not to mention the larger just historical forces of fascism that probably more important to all of this than the individual shooting, right? According to law enforcement marketing's team, the subjects in NMH targets were chosen in order to give officers the experience of dealing with deadly force shooting scenarios with subjects that are not the norm during training. I found while speaking with officers and trainers in the law enforcement community that there's a hesitation on the part of cops when deadly force is required on subjects with atypical age, frailty, or condition. One officer explaining that he enlarged photos of his own kids to use as targets so that he would not be caught off guard with such drastically new experiences while on duty. And this is 2013, mind you.
Shoot this picture of my kid?
his own children, like from his
Wow.
wallet. Because apparently, according to them, that's like the biggest problem in all of law enforcement is the empathy of police officers in not shooting enough, right?
Oh my god.
This hesitation time, this is a quote, this hesitation time may only be seconds, but that is not acceptable when officers are losing their lives in these same situations, the marketing team concludes. The goal of NMH is to break that stereotype on the range, regardless of how slim the chances of encountering a real-life scenario that involves a child, pregnant woman, etc. No matter how slim the chances, that's probably not going to happen, man. If that initial hesitation time can be cut down to range experience, the officer and the community are better served. Like, there's not even like a risk factor being factored in here of, okay, maybe shaving off that time in that scenario is outweighed by increasing the possibility of shooting a baby, right? An innocent baby that doesn't have a gun. It is generally argued that in police work, the officer must slow down to make an informed decision when engaging a suspect, as argued by Terrence Dwyer for Police One. There are no illusions on the part of any experienced officer that his or her actions will not reverberate beyond an immediate scene of an incident. It is an accepted part of the job, an expectation of which every officer must be prepared, yada, 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 yada. It closes by saying, in deciding to shoot a suspect, a police officer must factor in the danger of non-involved individuals, his own safety. At no time should shooting a suspect be a reflex. So that's the training that we're dealing with going into a guy like this. He's been identified. He was wearing a mask. Masks are interesting in all of this. You brought up they wore masks in this weird video where they went to the Leering Center. They've completely switched from being anti-mask, these people, to being pro, masks while they're conducting these raids. It's another reason that it's completely indefensible, the idea that this was just routine, that they were trying to, because there were two officers. One of them was trying to break into the car and yelling, let me the fuck inside your car, or something really weird and aggressive like that. And they were wearing masks. So when they wear masks, you can't really know that they're police officers, right? So it makes more sense that people would sort of attempt to just get the fuck away from them. Could just be a random person trying to break into your car. Yada, yada, yada. Ice-T changed cop killer to ice killer this week. That's cool. It's kind of unrelated. Yeah, so I want to talk about a couple things that connect to this, because Ice has also killed a couple other people recently. This has kind of become the incident that, for whatever reason, all the stars aligned and it became a social media sort of flashpoint. It was really well documented. Some people would argue, well, it was a white woman, therefore she's privileged. Some people would argue she's a lesbian, therefore she's not. Some people want to talk about the fact that she has kids. I don't know. For whatever reason, though, this thing happening at this time, at this place, being particularly gruesome, there's blood all over the airbags and things like that. That turned this into the thing of the week that the whole culture war and narrative and everything sort of revolves around. And people argue about, for better or worse, for whatever reasons. That's what it's happening. But we should talk about the couple other people they killed on New Year's Eve. Here in LA, Ice shot a guy named Keith Porter Jr. He was a black guy. He was a father of two. He was shooting a gun in the air out in some neighborhood called Northridge. And it's New Year's Eve. He was shooting a gun in the air. I know, right? There's obviously some gray areas here where you go, that's kind of technically illegal, but it's also LA, man. And if you're a fucking stupid police officer, ICE agent, and you see this and it's New Year's Eve, you might consider maybe not immediately executing this fucking person, right? You might use some context here. Or, I don't know, risk your life like you're always forcing us to fucking worship you for having done, right? That's the most annoying thing about cops to me, is we're always supposed to say, oh, they risk their lives. And it's like, they don't. They shoot before anything could ever possibly threaten them. It happens over and over again. So they killed Keith Porter Jr. And they also killed a couple in, I think, Portland. Let me see.
Yeah,
I've got this written down somewhere. But the couple they killed in Portland, I want to talk about, because we are to be told, we're given some pictures of them, and they're not white and they have tattoos. And as seemingly justification after the fact, we're told that they are members both of this gang called Tren de Aragua, and there doesn't really seem to be a whole lot of evidence supporting that. There's enough, I think, if you just sort of slap that on a story like this, enough people in America at this point are convinced, well, then they deserved to be executed. Which, but again, none of these things are justified, even if these people are, members of these supposed gangs, even if that woman was trying to kill that ICE officer. None of this stuff I don't think is true, but even if it was true, you still get a trial in America. Also, these are Americans, and ICE's whole thing is supposedly protecting the homeland. So how does that work? I think that's why the Renee Nicole Good is particularly sort of like contradictory and like kind of raising all these questions, because she was white, and it's easy to kind of understand what's going on in all these ICE killings where they kill a black or brown person, but you do kind of look at this eventually and go, wow, they're really showing that this organization isn't even about what it says it's about. Even in the really gross fascist sense, they'll kill Americans. They're just there to kill everyone, right? Fascism comes for everyone eventually. So, but I want to talk about this Tren de Aragua thing a little bit. So I've been reading more and more about Tren de Aragua. It's a bailiwick of mine. I've been obsessed with it for the last couple of years, because really only about 2024 April, I'd say, it became this really pervasive narrative in media in this country, because around that time, Trump invoked the Alien Enemies Act, which is a law from 1798 that we've talked about, that was also evoked during World War II as the reason to intern Japanese people in the United States. But it's a wartime law, and it's being used against this specter known as the Tren de Aragua, on the grounds that the Tren de Aragua, which is a gang, is now being elevated to the status of a terrorist organization via all these SPM7s or NSPM7s and stuff like that we've been talking about, all these sort of like cobbled together anti-terrorism laws that the Trump administration is using against anyone and everyone. And I guess what I'm arguing here is that it's like these things are all kind of a stretch. Things are being used legally to justify the ends of public executions and things like that, and just overreach of the police state. So we all know ICE is trained by the IDF. I think we've all probably seen a lot of the posts from Homeland Security. There's increasingly sort of drenched in fascist rhetoric about the homeland and things like that. But the Tren de Aragua, I'm increasingly convinced it's not real. And I don't think it was never real, but I guess here's my hot take for the episode is it's not, I don't think it's around anymore. And it's been used by the United States quite a bit as justification for just invoking these laws. It serves as a stark contradiction in U.S. regime change politics rhetoric of freeing the people of Iran and Venezuela versus from their oppressive government. I think I might have put that in the wrong. Oh wait, no, this is a note I made about just the ICE fucking extrajudicial murders that we have happening right now. We are currently engaged in two regime change wars, or two regime change things that we're supporting. Venezuela, as we've been talking about, and we'll get to probably in future episodes, if not later in this one. Iran, to be supporting regime change, all our own shock troops murder people in the street on the basis that they're oppressive authoritarian regimes. Whatever you think about Maduro, whatever you think about the mullahs, it's just hypocritical. It's just bad. There's no grounds for accusing somebody else of a crime that our country's doing. Anyways, back to fucking Tren de Aragua. Tren de Aragua is very loosely defined. There's a book that came out about it recently, and most of it's about how it's like supposedly has all this power in the fact that it is like loosely defined, so it's hard to catch and identify Tren de Aragua members. Now, that might sound like you're describing a really smart gang with like a sense of like mystique, but it also might sound like you're are identifying a thing that doesn't exist by seeing like, look, they don't even have a headquarters, or identifying tattoos or anything. You can kind of just say that, you know what I mean?
Right.
They don't have tattoos, unlike something like MS-13. MS-13 has its own complicated history. It's from the United States. It does have tattoos. It has a meaning. There, by the way, ICE has tattoos. There's a video that went around this week of a guy, ICE officer that was caught off duty with the SS, like lightning bolt Nazi SS letters behind his ear, which I think is really funny because it's a very twee tattoo for like a fascist to have. It's kind of like getting a tattoo like on your ankle or something. Nazis used to get tattoos on their chests, and now they're getting these like weird little quaint tattoos. But Tren de Aragua doesn't have any. So Tren de Aragua, the origin of it is this prison in Venezuela called the Tocaron prison. This is such a fucking wild story. I looked it up and I really was like, this sounds like it's not true. And I think I figured out what actually happened. So there's a gang started within the prison that was made up largely of railroad workers who were union railroad workers on a train that or a train path that I think never finished being built, something to do with the history of Venezuela and projects that have been started and then maybe never finished because of all the changes in government and stuff like that. And they took over this prison called Tocaron from the inside. And I think this is like kind of where they drew on this sort of stories where you get like Bane from in the Christopher Nolan Batman. He's supposed to be like kind of a big boss within a prison that's like taken over by the inmates, and yet they're still in prison for some reason. So the Tren de Aragua took over this prison Tocaron from the inside and gained enough power to build a swimming pool, a nightclub, a baseball stadium, a zoo, a bank, a casino, a playground, and tunnels allowing for free entry and exit. Now that sounds insane, right? How do you have an entire baseball stadium, a zoo, and a casino and a nightclub inside of a prison, right? Well, I think it's because it's not a fucking prison anymore. This is a successful prison riot we're talking about. They overtook the prison. It's just they just turned it into a town, I think, because it's a fucking large thing.
They made it into an entertainment complex.
It sounds like it's got better infrastructure than a lot of towns that exist in our country. Frankly, you know what? I'm moving to the Tocaron, and you can't stop me.
Yeah, sounds like a vacation spot.
Yeah. But it did, I don't know. I don't know enough of the details here. I mean, it does sound like organized crime. It does sound like fucking, this is not also a bunch of people necessarily purely doing community outreach and stuff. Although, I mean, there's the children's playground in it and things like that. So to some extent, when you do talk about gangs and stuff like that, that is what gangs do a lot of the times, and then they get demonized as these like organized crime, things that only exist to destroy. They're kind of a mix of the two. They're kind of what you get when you kill all the Black Panthers in California, and then you get the Crips and the Bloods, whatever, right? So, I don't know. There's a lot to be said. Neither here nor there, though, because the Tren de Aragua, right? They also, like I said, they don't have tattoos. They have a number of symbols that the United States now uses as criteria for saying someone is in Tren de Aragua, because nobody gets arrested and says, I'm in Tren de Aragua. What happens is you get arrested or they shoot you, and then they try to prove it after the fact so that they can invoke these anti-terrorism laws. And like, if you remember a few months ago when Trump was trying to prove that this guy's tattoos on his knuckles meant he was in MS-13, and they were just like a $sign and a smiley face and just like weird random shit that you would get maybe in prison via stick and poke. It's kind of what's happening here. They have this legal criteria. You have to get 10 points to be called Tren de Aragua. A lot of them involve tattoos. I think you get 3 points for a tattoo. One of the symbols that if you have on you at any given time that means you're Tren de Aragua is the Air Jordan logo, where he's like in the air with the basketball above his head.
Okay. Yeah.
Mind you, if you're wearing a pair of Air Jordans, you have that on you. Now you have 3 points that you're Tren de Aragua, right? So see where that's going, right?
Yeah.
It's bullshit. But this stuff, the idea that this has infiltrated the United States, that happens in 2024 because the prison bust that I was talking about, I think it's around like 2013 or so. And mind you, that's right at the beginning of Maduro, and then he gets saddled with this and everything. A lot of politics in Venezuela have been externally sort of like reduced to accusing Maduro of being the head of Tren de Aragua or somehow involved. The vice president of the PSUV, Diosdado Cabello, is being sort of like portrayed as his strong man, second in command. He's the Secretary of the Interior. He gets connected to this stuff a lot, and things have happened like, okay, so like there's this guy named Ronald Ojeda, right? Wait, is he the same Ojeda? No, it's a different guy. So basically, supposedly Diosdado Cabello carried out this execution of Ronald Ojeda in Colombia, I want to say, where he was in exile, because Ronald Ojeda was an opposition like commando. Like he was like did the dirty work for the opposition. He gets killed later. So then the fact that they killed him, they say, oh, well, he must have invoked the Tren de Aragua. It's just getting like sort of inserted in both sides of the argument. Yeah, sometimes Maduro calls people Tren de Aragua. Sometimes Trump does. It's kind of just a thing you call people when you're trying to delegitimize them. But anyways, this all goes back to 2024 in America. So this largely existed just in Venezuela and a couple surrounding countries in Latin America. And the argument that it exists here in the United States started in Aurora, Colorado at this apartment complex called the Edge at Lowry. So basically, if you look up Tren de Aragua in the United States, you'll get this image of these guys wearing red clothes, and it's just off of a camera, like a security camera, in this apartment complex in Aurora, Colorado. That's it. The entire thing is, I think one of them is holding a gun or something like that, right? So back around early 2024, this photo became grounds for arguing that this apartment complex had been taken over by the gang. So the reason that happened, you might be wondering, is like, why would someone start just saying that this gang had taken over this apartment complex? How do these these rumors, these hysterical things get started, like they're eating our dogs and stuff? Well, the Edge at Lowry is a slum, and it's most of the tenants are immigrants, right? So it's not even a bunch of white people that said, oh my God, somebody took over our thing. Whenever they interview the tenants at the Edge at Lowry, they say it's not real, right? This is, we're not taken over by Tren de Aragua. So where's the rumor coming from? Well, the landlord of the Edge at Lowry has left the place in disrepair and doesn't want to fix a lot of the stuff, the amenities and things like that at his apartment complex. So they have sort of legally declared that the reason that they haven't fixed your heating or your air conditioning or your refrigerator or whatever in your apartment at the Edge of Lowry is because they can't, because the apartment complex has been taken over by this mysterious gang called the Tren de Aragua, which kind of just came out of the Donald Trump MAGA-verse around that time because of his accusing the Venezuelan government of this or that. It's a thing that he just sort of grabbed onto as one of these convenient boogeymen. And then someone at this apartment complex sort of grabbed onto it. No one on the ground there has seen a Tren de Aragua, but that's where like a lot of this stuff came from. So this is still cited by Trump's anti-terror stuff as like the origin point of them entering the United States. And it's not real. Like, it's clearly not real. So I think, you know, if you consider that, and then also like the fact that the Cartel de Soles, which they were, you know, the justification for kidnapping Maduro and putting him on trial is that he was like the head of this cartel. Well, they had to sort of walk that back and admit it's not a real thing. It's like a made up thing that they just accuse people of being in. That kind of tells you what's going on with a lot of these like various scapegoats and things like that. Maybe that's why Renee Nicole Good is such a strange case, because they couldn't accuse her of being in one of these gangs because they don't have like a white lesbian mom gang to rally everyone around.
Minnesota would be the place for that. I mean, I don't want to make it. It's a really sad case, especially her son now, who it's not clear who's gonna raise him, because the father of her son was is deceased and was actually a comedian who I kind of knew a little bit.
Whoa.
Yeah, Tim Macklin, who passed away in 2023. It's just a really, I mean, all these people are human beings who are victimized by ICE, and for whatever reason, this winds up being the flashpoint. And Minneapolis just keeps having these like really important moments that kind of scramble people's brains. I mean, a few years ago, there was a white woman who was killed by a Somali police officer, and that was like an international. Like, she was, I think, Australian. That was like an international incident. It's continues to be a fascinating place. But this isn't over by any means. We're going to see what happens with I mean, so far, the most effective resistance against ICE there has not been the city itself, which has spoken up. Mayor Fry, who has he said, ICE, get the fuck out of Minneapolis. He's very deft at optics and sort of rhetoric, and really seeming like a progressive champion. I mean, if you remember 2020, this guy is sort of the reason that some people don't like funerals, because he went to George Floyd's funeral. Do you remember this? And he shows up and is just like weeping on his casket, and he could like he
This is Mayor Fry.
Yeah, this is Mayor Fry. Goes all the way down to Texas for George Floyd's funeral, and just like weeping on his casket and like kind of making it about him.
Yeah.
But he has given press conferences and said, and I do, have to cede that he has a point here, is that because he has said, legally speaking, we can arrest ICE officers, and he's not ruling that out, and neither is Mary Moriarty, who's the Hennepin County prosecutor. However, practically speaking, he said they outnumber us, which is a disturbing thought. I'm not sure if he means ICE in toto, or if he means ICE agents that are currently deployed as part of Operation Metro Surge, which is the name for it officially. But he's got a point. Is that like, is the Minneapolis Police Department, who he's meeting, he's giving these press conferences with the chief standing by his side, are they going to go to war with ICE? I mean, that's the thing I've been wondering this past year with Zoran is when is it going to come down to that? Because in a lot of these cases, there is severe tension between local and federal law enforcement, and they don't like each other in a lot of cases. Would that lead to it? That would be a very exciting. But so
It
far,
seems like this has started to kind of bubble up in like in Chicago earlier last year. The ICE was purposely, I think, jamming up like 911 lines or vice versa. They were They're like they do not like each other, oddly enough, even though they are probably comprised of a lot of the same people.
Yeah. Yeah. But and you know, I'm rooting for that to happen. It would be cool. I understand that the practicalities of that would be very difficult, but it does seem like the most effective thing has just been neighbors organizing in the Twin Cities. Um, the highway bridges, people have been holding up signs. They've been antagonizing these ICE officers. They've been, uh, you know, that sometimes they're getting them to just retreat, because as has been observed, there's a lot of buffoons, right? A lot of the people uh, in ICE were recruited after the last election, and this is kind of what we have in this country. You know, we used to have military Keynesianism. We still have that to a great degree, but this is like deportation Keynesianism. Like it's all this money is going in the boondoggle. If you're an everyday racist or reactionary, this is a good way to get a paycheck, and they're kind of letting a lot of people in. However, it is worth noting that this guy, Jonathan Ross, he's been in ICE since at least 2016. So that was when Obama was president. So it's not like they were highly competent and efficacious officers before. Like they've always been right wing nutcases who are filling these roles. But as Ken Klippenstein has reported, it's starting to the dam is starting to break here. There were documents that were leaked to Ken about the Border Patrol calling for volunteers to go to I think different places, but like people are getting really demoralized. Even in Minneapolis, yeah, DHS is sending volunteers because there's opposition within the ranks. Certain people are going there and they're like, we don't actually want to do this anymore. This is sad. This is depressing. People are yelling at us. Maybe we're actually doing something bad. And so they're like asking people to just show up, and that's gonna get even messier. So I think there was, you know, the Trump regime never had that much legitimacy to begin with, but this is, I think, really going to continue to undermine it.
Yeah, the Trump administration is maybe the breaking point where some of this happens, and it's like always important to counter the you know the really simple narrative that the Democrats are against this, and the solution to it is just voting for them and stuff. So like, yeah, when I was just talking about the Tren de Aragua myth getting off the ground, I meant to emphasize that that stuff took off in 2024 when Biden was president, even though some of it had previously been, you know, sort of like set up by Trump, his first administration, because in his first administration, he for that reason, because it just wasn't Trump time. And so this the underlying, you know, mechanisms of these scapegoating things and these anxieties and stuff totally still apply to liberals, because liberals are still kind of holding up the same empire. And I got into a fucking fight with the guy who plays Stimpy from Ren and Stimpy, and Fry, actually, speaking of Fry from Futurama, Billy West, about this, because on Twitter, because I remember he was just falling for it, and I was going like, just because it's Biden doesn't mean this isn't like really, really stupid. It's not made up. It's racist or whatever. And that guy's apparently kind of a hothead. I've learned from being out here in Los Angeles and talking to people in the community, so that happened. But yeah, it's a thing that's, you know, that's sort of like, I mean, it's like, it's really easy to make this point when you look at ICE being this like federal thing, because it's maintained consistency through red and blue administrations for the past few cycles. It's what the fuck was I gonna say? Yeah, Jonathan Ross. He's been an officer since 2016. There's a bunch of like stuff people have found, clips of him, little snippets from like Facebook where he's making all these horrible arguments with, like, you know, relatives and people like that in his life, like you do on Facebook. He's been a right-wing chud pretty pretty cookie cutter. You know, he's like an anti-woke, anti-liberal, anti-everything guy who you know, believes that you know, all the dumb myths about how they're coming to replace you and there's all this scarcity and stuff like that. That's why he joined up. This is literally like those dumb guys you see on Facebook. That's the people that they get to do this job, and they've, you know, incentivized it with like forgiving student loan debt and stuff like that, which like you know, I mean, I saw somebody make a joke the other day that's like, what, student loan debt? Because like they're dumb, but like dumb people get to go to college and they get student loan debt just like everybody else, you know.
Yeah, who do you think gets the criminal justice degrees? The business.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, smart. Yeah, certain smart people, I'm sure, do that too. But
yeah, and that stuff continued all through Biden, all through Obama, but after Bush, and you know, if they vote, you know, if you end up voting Trump out and getting a fucking Democrat in, it's going to continue during them unless it reaches some sort of breaking point, which kind of seems like if that's going to happen, it's going to happen during Trump 2 right now, or Trump 3 later. I don't know. Yeah, I think this is probably a good place to land here. We don't know. I don't want to get into Iran just yet. There's a lot to study up on before we talk about that, and I'm sure we're going to have a great, respectful dialogue with everyone who listens to the show about it. As we figure out what the fuck the nuance of the situation is. I've since you've been gone, I've discovered that the people hate the word nuanced, so I'm using it a lot. Everything is nuanced. All right, well, welcome back, Anders. Huh?
I was making a terrible joke. They're more into old aunts.
Oh,
not my finest work.
No, I like it. It took me a second. New unks. How about that?
Oh yeah.
Anyways, welcome back to the show, man. Glad
thank
to have
you.
Back. It's a lot easier to do this with you.
Yeah, glad to be back. We're closing out here. Shout outs to first of all, Lone Star State of Mind. Great movie. I've not seen it since 2003. It's always an interesting thing to see if something holds up from your past. But also, I want to shout out some great journalism in the Twin Cities, Racket, MN, as well as the Minnesota Reformer, have all been tracking this situation very closely. So give them a follow. I also want to close by saying a few words about a former listener of the show. I believe the only listener to ever whose main objection was foul language on this show. I'm talking about my mother, Nan McGrain, who passed away this past weekend. And I've really been grappling with how to pay tribute to her. Unlike me, she was a very private person, which means if anyone listening remembers certain points on the show where I have made fun of things she had said or done, please erase that from your memory, because I'm realizing now I mean I don't think I spilled aired any dirty laundry, but she was very different from me, and in some ways, in other ways not, but is someone who I've been thinking about this in the context of what's happening in the Twin Cities right now, which I know if she was still here, she would be protesting ICE, along with a lot of people who are doing that for the right reasons. And that's why she lived her life the way she did. That's why she had kids, was for the right reasons. And that's why she had a career as a civil rights attorney. And a lot of people hear, attorney or lawyer, and you think like Ally McBeal or like a big fancy courtroom. But my mom was worked for unions. She worked for at the end of her career for the Department of Education in Minnesota. And I just want to I don't want to say too much about her, but there is one thing about her that I'm very proud of, and that is the state of Minnesota has a manual on Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. Now, that's going to sound very wonky, but this is a part of the law that that requires equality. It prohibits discrimination against people with disabilities, and it's a part of the law that nobody in Minnesota understood, except for my mom at a certain point. And I don't want to get too deep in the weeds, but part of the reason she understood it so well is because of me, and she was able to get a job with the Department of Education and write a manual on enforcing this law that existed. And that's one of the things she taught me, is that a law is really only as good as the paper it's written on. It's enforcing the law. It's actually having things in the real world that make the law. You have to actually enact the law, and you have to care about, that it doesn't mean anything just on a piece of paper, right? It's deeper than that, and you have to, and rights aren't things that you can take for granted. And that's something she passed down to me, and she was able to help countless kids in the state of Minnesota get the rights that they have enshrined in law actually recognized, because they weren't. And again, countless people have been helped by that manual and that enforcement, and I was one of them. And I just want to give I'm trying to think of a word other than shout out, but a tribute to her based on that, because there are so many other people in this world who are responsible for making it a better place in bigger and small ways, and most of them, we don't know their names, and a lot of them don't really care about that. They're doing it for something deeper than just credit or attention. They're doing it for love, and that's what I feel for my mom. And I love you. And that's the end of my eulogy.
That's beautifully said. Thank you, Anders. It's very sweet. Thank you for sharing. And RIP. Yeah, and thanks for listening. I can't believe that. Every time you told me that you listened, it always tickled me, and also made me go, dear Lord, what did I say on the show? But yeah. All right. Well, with that, I think that's the end of the episode. Thanks for listening, guys. And yeah, stick with us. Here's to a whole nother year of this stuff to get through. Okie dokie. It is finito.